On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, Dbacks with the convincing series win over the LA Dodgers, breaking down what went right so they can continue doing it in their next series against the San Diego Padres, and discussing Christian Walker's case for the MLB All-Star Game.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, multimedia journalist and a graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. On today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, we'll talk about that Dbacks series win over the LA Dodgers. We'll talk about how chaos in the bullpen continues to improve for the Dbacks, and we'll break down Christian Walker's case for the All-Star Game. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube. Our goal is to hit 1,300 subscribers by the MLB All-Star Game. We're at like 1230-ish right now, so please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. Now let's get into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast and talk about that convincing series victory over the LA Dodgers. D-backs took it to the Dodgers. They won the finale 9-3. They routed them in game number 2. And if we're being honest, this should have been a sweep by the D-backs. Paul Sewald in game 1, up 2 runs, blows the save. He hadn't done that all season until game number 1. He was 11 for 11, 0.54 ERA entering that save situation, and instead he blew it, unfortunately. But the D-backs were able to come back in game number 2 and game number 3 and beat the Dodgers in convincing fashion. And now the D-backs, they can call the Dodgers the little brothers. The Dodgers for so long have tormented Arizona and Arizona fans, but recently, it's been a change in the air because D-backs have now won 6 of their last 8 games in LA. Going back to the postseason last year, they seemed so confident, so comfortable in that stadium. The offense has been electric in LA. And the man that has been more comfortable than anyone in that series has been Christian Walker, who owns the Dodgers this season. He had 5 home runs in just this series, 2 more home runs in the finale. He starts the first inning off with a bang because Jock Peterson and Christian Walker went back-to-back in the first inning. Jock Peterson, really good this series, but Christian Walker was the star in this game, in this series. I don't know why the Dodgers continue to pitch to Christian Walker. After the second home run, they were like, finally, let's just, you know what? Screw it. Let's walk him. I mean, he's already hit 19 home runs against us this season. Let's walk him, I guess. I don't know why it took so long for Dave Roberts, but I wasn't complaining. I love seeing Christian Walker go up there in every plate appearance and just smoke the ball. I mean, by the time we got to the finale, he wasn't even smiling anymore in those play appearances where he ended with a home run because he just knew it was coming. Christian Walker had himself a fantastic series, and we'll talk about later in the podcast how this series might have pushed Christian Walker into the All-Star game. And I want the D-backs to carry this momentum that we saw in this series to the next one against the San Diego Padres, because we've seen the D-backs before ride this high, take care of business against the LA Dodgers. They did it not that long ago. Earlier this season, the D-backs did that. But in the very next season, after taking care of business against the LA Dodgers, the D-backs blew it right after that, I believe, against the Miami Marlins, where they had a big come down after looking really good against the Dodgers. The D-backs were not able to follow it up with another good series, and it's frustrating when you go through these highs of taking down your division leader, one of the best teams in the National League. You feel so good after taking down an opponent like the LA Dodgers, but you have to continue to ride the momentum. Right after they beat the Dodgers, they lost to the Miami Marlins 2 out of 3 games, and then they lost the 2-game series to the Texas Rangers. They lost back-to-back series right after beating the LA Dodgers in LA last time, and they can't do that again. Next up is the San Diego Padres, and for the D-backs, they need that series against the San Diego Padres. The Padres are directly ahead of the D-backs in the wild card race, but they're not they're not like super far ahead of the D-backs. The D-backs are 3 games back of the Padres. So theoretically, the D-backs can go into that series against San Diego, get a sweep, and potentially own that second wild card spot. At least take 2 out of 3 from the Padres and own the season series against the Padres, because I believe they're down 1 game right now in the season series to the San Diego Padres. Let me just double check that to be sure. I believe the D-backs are down just 1 game in the season series to the San Diego Padres this year. Let's see, I have it pulled up here. Yeah, D-backs 3-4 against the Padres this year. So you sweep the Padres. I don't think it's likely, but if you sweep the Padres, you'll own the season series against them, and you'll own probably one of those 2 wild card spots. D-backs right now, the first team on the outside looking in for the wild card race. D-backs with a 0 run differential on the year. So that actually looks pretty good. So coming off this series against the LA Dodgers, keep that momentum going against the San Diego Padres. Keep the vibes high. You don't want to take down a great opponent against the Dodgers and then lose to the wild card opponent that you're going against in the San Diego Padres the very next series. So hopefully the D-backs can continue to ride that momentum. And some of the players that they would like to see continue to ride that momentum, Gabriel Moreno and Jock Peterson, both had very underrated series. Moreno, 3 more hits in the finale. He had the home run in this series. He's provided pop. He's provided speed. Of course, he's a great catcher behind the plate. Jock Peterson, he had a couple of home runs in this series. He was doing his job as well. Had a couple of walks in the finale. Like, both of those guys, really strong play appearances this series. Both those guys provided a lot of pop in the lineup as well for the D-backs, and a lot of clutch hits as well. Moreno in that 9th inning would double down the line. Great job by both of those guys offensively this series. Great job by the D-backs defense overall. We saw Alec Thomas and Corbin Carroll make some incredible plays in the outfield. Eugenio Suarez, he wasn't able to gun the guys down at first, but made some incredible barehanded pickups and throws down to Christian Walker. I thought the D-backs defense overall in this series, very, very strong. J Mart, he was electric the first time in his career. He went 3 innings, no earned runs, 5 strikeouts. I think it was the 8th time in D-backs franchise history that they had a reliever go at least 3 innings with no earned runs and 5 strikeouts. J Mart was electric, hitting 100 miles per hour consistently, fooling and keeping the Dodgers hitters off balance. He was fantastic in the series finale, along with the rest of the D-backs bullpen. All of them was really good this series. Zach Gallen, he was a little shaky, I guess. I mean, the Dodgers scored the runs against Zach Gallen in that 4th inning. For the most part, I didn't think Zach Gallen was bad or anything. He just had trouble putting away Dodgers hitters. Thought the Dodgers hitters did a great job. A lot of times working the count on Gallen, 10, 11, 12 pitch counts against Gallen, a lot of full counts. But the thing with Gallen that was really impressive, the velocity is better than ever for Gallen right now. He was typically a guy in his career that sat between 93, 94. That's probably where his fastball averaged around 93, 94. And this start against the Dodgers and the last start against Oakland A's, he is averaging around 97 miles per hour and hitting 97 consistently, even hitting 98. That's not something that we've typically seen from Gallen. In this game, he averages 96 miles per hour on his fastball. That's up 3 miles per hour on the season. Gallen apparently made some adjustment, and he's throwing harder than ever. That's why I love Gallen. He's always trying to figure out how to get better, how to always improve, and that's why I wouldn't be afraid ever giving Zach Gallen ever giving Zach Gallen an extension because he's the kind of guy to always improve and get better as he gets older. So I would never be afraid of giving a player like that an extension. D-backs, big convincing series win over the LA Dodgers, and hopefully they can continue the momentum against the San Diego Padres next. And we'll do a little preview of that series in segment number 2. But hey, if you're looking to get some cash back, then I suggest using my favorite app, Ibotta, because it's summertime, which means it's barbecue season. Stock up on all your grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Ibotta, so you won't have to choose between burgers or hot dogs. You can get both. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. It's time you joined the over 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or Apple App Store and use code LOCKEDONMLB. And if you haven't filed your taxes yet, then I suggest Tax Network USA, because here on Locked On Diamondbacks, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, it's year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or finally hit that parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon and be sure to mention Locked On at checkout and you'll receive $250 discount off their services. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. And let's talk about two things that the D-backs have been doing very well recently that they need to continue to do if they want to get that series win over the San Diego Padres. Because, like we discussed, the Padres are right there in the wild card race with the D-backs. They currently own that second wild card spot. D-backs 3 games back of the Padres, but they played the Padres very close this year. Those series are always back and forth against the Padres. And right now, the Padres are dealing with some injuries, just like the LA Dodgers. The Padres are a little vulnerable right now. We thought that series against the Dodgers was going to be very winnable because of injuries to Yamamoto, injuries to Mookie Betts. We thought the D-backs were going to have a chance because of it. And same with the San Diego Padres, because they are also a team dealing with a bunch of injuries right now. And when you look at their injured list and some of the guys on it, Xander Bogaerts, he's been out a while. That's a big one. You Darvish, Joe Musgrove, Fernando Tatis Jr. Like, some of the best San Diego Padres right now are on their injured list. And so this is a great opportunity for the D-backs to once again, against a vulnerable opponent, win a series and get closer in that wild card race. And two things that they've done recently that was really highlighted in that series against the LA Dodgers that I want them to continue to do is create chaos, more chaos, and continue to have the bullpen pitch well. We saw the speed in that series finale for the D-backs. They were running all over Austin Barnes. You had, let me count it up real quick, Ketel Marte, Alec Thomas, Corbin Carroll, and Gabriel Moreno all with steals in that game. We saw the team speed be so important in this series. Not only was it the steals, but it was times where maybe a Teoscar Hernandez slow to the ball. Corbin Carroll goes from second to third, or Jake McCarthy running through the sign to score on a ball, or when he lays down the bunt, it creates chaos, and now he's on second base. We saw the D-backs use their speed so much in this series, and that chaos element is not something that we've seen a ton from the D-backs this season. I think the chaos is what led to the D-backs having so much success last year, right? It was their whole playoff moniker and philosophy was create and embrace chaos with the speed of Carrolls and the Thomases and McCarthys and the Domos last year. It led to so much D-back success. But this year, it's felt like we have not seen a ton of the chaos and a ton of the speed from the D-backs. But I think part of the problem has been the injuries. And now that the D-backs are healthy again with Alec Thomas and Domo back in the mix, I think we're going to see this D-backs chaos go to another level. We saw the small ball in the series, whether it was taking your extra base, laying down the bunt. The D-backs are so much more successful recently now that this D-backs team is healthy once again. And we were sending everyone in that finale against the LA Dodgers. Love to see the D-backs once again create chaos. When you still look at the numbers for extra base taken in the National League, D-backs second in the NL, 47% of the time they're taking the extra base. They're number one in the NL in terms of run scoring percentage when they have runners on. So some of the stats tell you the speed is still there, the chaos is still there. But the biggest thing that's been missing has been mostly just the stolen bases. That has not been a huge part of the D-backs game this season. They are currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They were ninth entering the finale against the Dodgers in the National League in stolen bases. They're probably higher than that. They're probably at least eighth now, but they were ninth, so they weren't even in the top half in the NL in terms of stolen bases entering the finale against the Dodgers. But if you look at the D-back stats, since June, they're fourth in stolen bases. They've been creating more chaos. You see more speed. And with Thomas and Domo back, I expect the D-back speed to be a bigger weapon going forward. I think that chaos is such an important element that the D-backs are going to start bringing back. Then the other thing that the D-backs did really good in this series, and something that they've been doing really good recently, is just the pen. The bullpen has really been holding it down for the D-backs the last few weeks. If a guy like Thiago Vieira can turn into a guy in the back end of the bullpen, think about how many hard-throwing dudes the D-backs would now have with J Mart and Vieira both averaging like 100 miles per hour. Ginkel and Jarvis can both average like around 97 miles per hour. Like all of a sudden, you do have pretty legit heat in the back end of your bullpen. And if you look at the numbers for the pen since June has started, Ginkel has a sub 1 ERA since June. Paul Sewald has been good all year. Vieira has around a 3 ERA since the start of June. Mantiply 3.18 ERA since the start of June. Bryce Jarvis 3.32. We know Ryan Thompson, Justin Martinez have been good all year. Like that's 7 guys all of a sudden that you feel pretty good about in the back end of your bullpen. And yes, if you look at the D-backs like overall team bullpen since the month of June, they probably still have like the second or third worst ERA, but that's because of guys like Brandon Hughes and Tommy Henry and the Scott McGuffs, the guys that the D-backs actually trust and use from the bullpen. Ginkel, Sewald, Vieira, Mantiply, Jarvis, Thompson, Martinez, all of them have been really good for a 4 or 5 week stretch now. That's 7 guys I just named. This D-backs bullpen all of a sudden getting a little more trustworthy, starting to throw a little bit harder, can trust in high leverage moments. I like the way that the D-backs are using their relievers. I like the way that the relievers are pitching. The bullpen has not been the bullpen has not been the problem recently. The offense has not been the problem recently for the D-backs. Right now, the biggest area holding the D-backs back right now is probably the rotation. We've seen chaos with the offense. We've seen the pen be able to hold it down in late game situations. Right now, it's probably the offense that needs to pick it up the most. And when you're looking at the pitching matchups upcoming against the San Diego Padres, I think it could go either way. The D-backs are going to have a very nice opportunity to potentially win this series. Slade versus Randy Vasquez in game number one. Fott versus Matt Waldron in game two. And then Ryan Nelson versus Dylan Cease in game three in the finale. And that game three probably looks bad on paper, Ryan Nelson versus Cease. But if you look at the recent numbers, Nelson has been electric in three of his last four starts, and Cease has been awful in three of his last four starts. So recent trends tell you Ryan Nelson is pitching better than Dylan Cease right now. We'll see if it continues in the next series against the Padres, but D-backs have been doing things better from a chaos and a bullpen standpoint and want to see them continue to do that against the San Diego Padres. But now I want to talk about Christian Walker's All-Star case in segment number 3. But hey, if you need any parts for your vehicle, then why not check out eBay Motors? Because passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors says everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And also, if you're thinking about doing any summer traveling, then check out booking.com. Booking. Yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you always secretly want to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city. From hotels that look over stadiums to family friendly resorts, Booking.com has so many choices across the U.S. for your summer travel this MLB season. Best believe I do like traveling to California to see my D-backs take on those NL West opponents. Why not a little trip to LA? Maybe hit the Bay and see D-backs versus Giants. Love going to the Gas Lamp to see the D-backs versus Padres. Check out Booking.com to check out your rival cities. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Booking today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking. Yeah. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about Christian Walker's case for the All-Star game, because legitimately, Christian Walker had a good case for the All-Star game pre this series. I think he was clearly third among first basemen behind a Bryce Harper, who got the starting nod for the All-Star game, and probably behind a Freddie Freeman when looking at the numbers. But after this series, Christian Walker has played his way into the conversation for the All-Star game, potentially over Freddie Freeman, because this was truly an elite series by Christian Walker. 5 home runs in just 3 games. He entered the series tied with Ketel Marte for the team lead in home runs. Now he leads the team in home runs by 5. He leads all first basemen in home runs, and he's second in the National League in home runs, just behind Shohei Ohtani. Walker is having himself a fantastic season prior to this series, and now it's gone to another level because of playing against the LA Dodgers. Thank you, Dodgers, for really inflating the numbers of Christian Walker. If Walker played 162 games in LA, he might put up Barry Bonds video game numbers. Never let Christian Walker go to LA, because that would be the scariest man in baseball. Walker has an extremely strong case for the All-Star game, but his biggest issue is what I just touched on. It's an extremely crowded position. You got Harper already starting the All-Star game. Freddie has really strong numbers. Even a guy like Pete Alonso has 18 home runs. Like, The position is crowded. Michael Bush is having a good year. Like, the position is crowded. But I don't think it should matter. That's my retort to the position being crowded. I don't think it should matter. Why can't Freddie Freeman and Christian Walker both make it to the All-Star game? When looking at the field of potential All-Stars right now, just looking at the field in general of National League players, not a very strong year. Numbers have been down this year for just players in general, and I don't think when looking at the field, there's a ton of even all-star worthy candidates. Christian Walker right now should not be penalized for his position because I believe Christian Walker is having one of the best seasons in the National League. And yes, he might play at a crowded position, but the field itself of guys who you might be picking over Christian Walker to go to the game are not better than Christian Walker. You would only be picking them because you don't want like 3 first basemen or whatever on the roster. I don't think that's how it should go. The All-Star game should be about representation of the guys having the best years. And no doubt, Christian Walker is having one of the best years in the National League. Like I said, he leads all first basemen in home runs, and he's second overall in home runs in the National League. He's top 7 in the National League in OPS, top 4 in RBIs, and he's by far the best defensive first baseman in the National League. No matter what number you look at, you go on Fangraphs, literally go through every single defensive stat. Christian Walker, if he does not lead it, he will probably be top 3 in that category. He is a defensive monster who does not make mistakes hardly ever. And now his offense is also of someone that is an elite stud. Christian Walker, after this series, is now higher than Freddie Freeman in slugging percentage. He entered the series below Freddie Freeman. He is now crushing Freddie Freeman when looking at slugging percentage. 526 for Walker, Freddie Freeman at 509. Walker really put in a lot of work in this series, and now he has a legitimate case to be in the All-Star game over Freeman. I think Freeman will probably end up getting more votes than Christian Walker, but again, that doesn't mean Christian Walker should be left off just because they play the same position. It's an exhibition game. Positions shouldn't even matter. It should be just the best players in the game. And clearly, Christian Walker is one of the 10 best players in the National League right now. The other path for Christian Walker making it to the All-Star game would be Bryce Harper not being healthy and potentially missing the game. Then I think at that point, Christian Walker is a lock to make it to the All-Star game if Bryce Harper misses it. But even if Harper plays, Walker is still deserving to make it to the game along with Freddie Freeman. They both should be getting the All-Star nod. Christian Walker is someone that has never made it to the All-Star game before, and I'm hoping that adds to his case. I'm hoping the fact that Christian Walker has never made it to the All-Star game actually helps his case. This is a guy that has put up All-Star game numbers, All-Star level numbers in the past, even in the first half of the season. Christian Walker last year in the first half, 265 average, 848 OPS, 18 home runs, and 58 RBIs. Well, guess what? Right now, Christian Walker has better numbers than that across the board. And so potentially by the All-Star break, could Christian Walker have like 24, 25 home runs, like 70 RBIs? Like, Christian Walker is on pace to have a monster season. And I believe Christian Walker should be rewarded by going to his first ever MLB All-Star game. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back next week for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.